Good morning, everyone. Good morning, listeners. Good morning, viewers. I'm hoping that we would have a great program this morning. We have some very interesting people with us today. And before I go ahead and introduce my guest, um, this month, MASH is actually observed as a social work month. And throughout this month, we're going to have social workers here to talk about what we do, how we go about and do it, and so on. Also, we observe International Women's Day, which is observed on the 8th, right, Miss? Yes, on the 8th of March. So, two in one. Okay, so with me this morning, we have my co host, Miss Janice Charles, who is a family caseworker for the Denver region. And these two lovely people out here. Hi, smile. We have Mr. Joseph and Miss Calixte from Millennium Heights Medical Complex. Both of them are social workers. So I will allow everyone to introduce themselves and say a little more about themselves and what they do. Okay, so we're going to start off with my co-host and we'll move over to our social workers from NHMC. Thank you. Go ahead, Miss.
Good morning, listeners out there, and good morning to social workers. My name is Janice Charles. As Ms. Bondiemaitre said, I am the social worker slash family case worker for the Denver region, both North and South. Um, at Human Services or working in Denver, we do a lot of child abuse, neglect. We work with families. We take cases to court for children who are neglected or abused, and we also work with the elderly. We do all round up things concerning family and social ills. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Charles. We're moving over to Miss Calix.
Why will you do that?
Miss Calix.
Okay, good morning. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
We can hear you. It's just rule. Okay.
Oh, okay. So my name is Gregoria Calixte. I am a social worker at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex. I'm attached to the OKEU hospital, and I have been here for almost 3 years now. Um, on a daily basis, I work with patients at the hospital who are in need of medical assistance as well as persons with social issues which would impact their medical care post recovery from the hospital.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Calix. Over to our gentleman, Mr. Joseph.
Good day, everyone. My name is Brandon Joseph. I, like Miss Calix, I work at the Bondiemaitre Medical Complex, but I'm attached to the Wellness Center. So at the Wellness Center, we basically provide support to patients who have psychiatric illnesses. So we provide psychosocial support. We refer them to agencies. We basically assist in addressing any social issues or social challenges that they may face on a daily basis.
Thank you so very much. And this morning we have a little change. You'll not be hearing much of Miss Bonnie voice. As I said, Miss Charles is going to be my co-host. So with a difference today, um, as in observance of Social Work Month, I will be having a co-host throughout the month, and this co-host will be doing part of the interviewing and the speaking. So I'm going to move over to Miss Charles, who is going to engage our sister and brother social workers. So over to you, Miss Charles.
Yes, welcome again. Since this month is Social Work Month, we know some people may not have heard about social workers and they do not know what we do. They do not know what a social worker is. So, my first question to you is, can you tell the public what exactly is a social worker, or what is social work?
Okay, well, social work, first of all, outside of social work is a professional field, right? Um, in order for one to become a social worker, you must have at least minimum a bachelor's degree in order to practice, right? So it's a professional field where we basically provide support to vulnerable, mostly vulnerable populations, right? So persons with mental health conditions, persons who face challenges such as poverty, child abuse, neglect. We also advocate on their behalf in terms of um, collaborating with the community to help put safety nets in place and to help assist them in finding the necessary resources that they would need. But most in well the initial aspect is basically to empower individuals and empower the community to help live good lives basically. So I don't know if Mr. Calix would like to add anything.
Okay, so you said that when you introduced yourself and you said that you work at the Mr. Joseph, you said you work at the wellness center.
Mhm.
Um, you said that you work with the persons with mental illness, mental illness,
Psychiatric, yeah. Mental
psychiatric.
illness, psychiatric
Okay.
illnesses, yeah.
Um, so what would be the different areas or the fields in social work that you would be doing using there at the wellness
Okay,
center?
well, in terms of the field, well, specifically, it would be mental health, basically.
Okay.
It would be mental health. So at MHMC, we have three institutions. We have Turning Point, we have OKEU, and we have Wellness, right?
Okay, so can
So
you
we,
just tell us the difference with OKU before you proceed?
Mhm.
OKU, the Wellness Center, and Turning Point. So at least the people will know where is OKU and
Okay,
where is the Wellness
okay,
Center and Turning Point. What, give us a little synopsis of these things and then you can go ahead. Sorry.
yeah,
And
okay.
sorry.
Okay, so like Mr. Joseph said, we have three institutions at NHMC. So we have OKU, which is the medical hospital. We have the Soufriere National Mental Wellness Center, which is a psychiatric hospital, and we have Turning Point, which is the drug and rehabilitation center. So at OKU, the social workers there will focus more on medical social work. At the Soufriere National Mental Wellness Center, the social workers there will focus on psychiatric social work, and at Turning Point, the social workers would focus on substance abuse and drug rehabilitation. So, and earlier you asked about the other fields of social work. So, apart from medical, psychiatric, and substance abuse, there are many fields in social work, such as school social work. You have case management. There is gerontology, which is also focusing on elder care and aging. There is criminal social work, so you would find persons who work with probation. There's also social welfare and social justice. That's where you find welfare officers. You have child protection, so that is where human services would come in. Um, is there anything that I'm forgetting?
Well, also at MHMC, we have the medical exemption
Yes,
social worker as well.
yes.
So
So
that.
on a daily basis, we would probably tap into any or all of these different aspects of social work with just our normal rules and duties.
Okay, so I'm going to go into asking you, since we're talking about the different types of institution at New Millennium Heights, I want to ask you, Miss Calix. So, what would be the role of a social worker at the OKU?
Okay, so for me, I deal more with medical assistance. So my clients would um, more or less compromise persons who need financial assistance in terms of getting medications and whatnot, medical assistance persons who would need um, probably care at home after they're discharged from the hospital, persons who would need assistance in getting what is the word that I'm looking for? But okay, so I deal more or less with the medical side of social work. So I will help patients and their families get the support that they need outside, if it's from Ministry of Health, if it's from places like human services, if persons have social issues which would impact their care at home. Like I said earlier, that can include persons who live alone, like elderly persons who live alone, who for whatever reason they came to the hospital, they may have gotten a hip fracture or something, and then to recover at home they would need assistance. So I would liaise with their family if they still have family alive or children to see how best we can put in a care plan after they've left the hospital so that they can return to their normal lives.
Thank you. So listeners out there, so what the young lady is saying, if you go to the hospital and you're not sure how to get your medication, maybe you live alone, you're an elderly person and you're wondering how will you take care of yourself. So there you can ask for a social worker because she may not know every patient that's at the hospital, or they will not know whether you need the help. So subwize omun edo amade pour social worker dio ou vle parler by social worker ou kay explain bali ki sa ou bwize e ki kay edo. So sou pa sav nou ka do hodia. So since we're but Mr. Joseph, can you
Mhm.
enlighten us a bit more?
Yes, no problem. Well, on my end, like I said earlier, we work with patients with mental health conditions. So first of all, I work on a team of what you call a multidisciplinary team. So we work with the psychiatrists, the house officers, the nurses, occupational therapy. So we work on a team and we provide psychiatric care for patients. So when patients come in, one of the first important thing for me is to do an assessment, right? Um, Doing an assessment entails basically finding family support for that individual, because we know with mental health challenges, family support is something that's very important, right? And all of that, it basically goes into the patient's discharge plan as well. So a discharge plan is so from the time the patient is admitted, we put things in place, find family members, find out whether or not the client has adequate housing, um, find out whether or not the client we need in same thing as Calix mentioned, in whether or not they would need a person to basically take care of them, whether or not they're facing challenges such as poverty. So the social worker would basically put things in place, whether it be referring the patient to outside agencies such as Ministry of Equity, such as Ministry of Health, SSDM, you understand, in terms of basically trying to meet, although yes, we at the Wellness Center, we focus on the client's mental health condition, but as a social worker, we look at the person
The
as a
holistic.
whole and their their background, their family dynamics, their community. We also refer them to our community team, because we have a team out within the community, the psychiatric nurse, the psychiatrist. So, for example, if that after the client is discharged, we would refer them to that team so that they could come probably on a monthly basis to administer medication and whatnot. And we also do follow-ups with that client to make sure that they basically following the discharge plan that has been put in place, and to basically provide psychoeducation to the client's family. So meaning you basically educate the family about the individual and the mental health condition that they have, and to basically encourage them to support that individual or put things in place that would help them recover.
So, in other words, you're saying that you also do. It may not be you, but part of your team, they do home visits. So they go out there and
Yes.
they work in the field and they visit those patients out there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's no need for you to be coming to the wellness center all the time.
All the
So
time. Yes. Yes.
right. Okay. Interesting. Um. So we were talking about referrals. You were talking about referrals. And we know that one of the things that we do, even at Human Services, we refer clients sometimes because we cannot do everything. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, how do you, as social workers, advocate for your clients?
Okay, so advocating looks like it's a broad topic, but for us, what we would do, we would try to, based on the client situation, we would try to get them the help that it is. So if it's a case where, or it could look like us speaking with persons who make decisions, so policymakers and whatnot, speaking to them about, let's say, trends that we've noticed so far, and trying to put things in place so that these things can change. Because sometimes patients may not necessarily know who to speak to, where to go to for different things. So we're the ones in the position to speak about their challenges and try to assist in making those changes. So we would speak to policymakers, we would help them navigate the social systems, and as well for me the medical system, so they know where to go, what to look for, what they need to bring with them when they need certain things. And if it's a case like the patient or the clients um, I get your plan. The client's rights are being violated, then that's where we step up, we speak out, we get the necessary powers that need to make the changes that needs to be. So we're more or less on the front lines, speaking on persons' behalf to get them the things that they need so that their situations can change. So that's what advocacy would look like for us.
So to
Yes.
on us, well, also too in terms of a practical example, right? So you have on my end, or even on Miss Calixte's end as well, you have patients that we need um identification cards and sort of like the ID and the birth certificate, that they may not be in a position to basically get these things. So that's where we come into play in terms of assisting, in terms of advocating for them and helping them understand the system. And even for us as well, in terms of reaching out to these agencies on their behalf to get these things. Even situations where you have patients coming in and they probably experience some form of sexual abuse or physical abuse. So that's where we refer or we reach out to someone at Human Services. So that's more of a practical sense in terms of advocacy it entails. And advocacy, a big part of advocacy as well is in terms of outreach and educating the community. So you have persons, for example, you have an individual, they may have lost their job because of due to their mental health condition, especially if they might have been dismissed. You understand? So that's where we now step up in terms of interacting with the different agencies, um, or with the employee. And for example, even with NIC in terms of assisting in terms of getting their benefits and whatnot. So that's basically a practical sense in terms of what in terms of advocacy.
So when you're a social worker, you wear many hats.
Yes.
Definitely, definitely.
Yes. Um, so I know sometimes as social workers, we get a lot of challenges in terms of the clients that we see, in terms of the administration. You think that you're doing your best, and the clients may feel that you're not helping them. Your supervisor may feel that you laid back, and what other skills that you need, because it's not anybody that can be a social worker. What other skills that you need to be a good social worker?
Well, let me go first. Well, for me, one of the first set of skills I think is patience. You must you must be patient. You have to be patient with the client's family, and even the agencies that you interact with,
So,
and yeah, and even yourself as well. For me, number two is building rapport, in terms of building rapport with individuals, because um, not only building rapport with the client, but with other agencies. I think that in itself makes things a little smooth and easier for you as a social worker. You understand? So these things, that's the two things for me.
um,
Being patient, being able to build rapport. Yeah, that's and being able to communicate effectively as well. It may be simple, but yeah.
we also need a good, well, emotional intelligence. Because sometimes we hear things, we see things, person say things, and your first instinct would just be to lash out. But if you need emotional intelligence to handle the situation appropriately. We also need teamwork, good teamwork skills, collaboration. We need negotiating skills, mediation skills, critical thinking. We need to know how to solve problems. So there's a whole bunch of skills that the ordinary person may not be able to come in and just do. That's why Mr. Joseph started with that. It's a profession where you need to be qualified. So we go for a lot of schooling to
Continuous
hold,
schooling.
yes, and continuous schooling as well to refine our skills so that we can do what we do to the best of our ability.
I heard some of the skills, Mr. Joseph, patience, listening, building rapport. Now, these are not things you learn in school. They tell you about that, but these are not things you learn in school. These are things that has to be internal. It has to be part of you, because I know there are sometimes some clients would come to our office, and they just want to vent. And you cannot help them, but you have to sit and and listen. So that's where empathy comes in. So
Yes, that's another
so
big
you
skill.
so by the time they get up and you say, I really you cannot help them, but I will send you to so and so. I'll give you a referral. You pick up your phone, you make a call, and they will hear, okay, she tried. Even if they know very well that you cannot help them, but they will say she tried, she
You give
listened,
them a
she
sense
was
of
so
hope. A
empathetic.
sense of hope. Yeah.
Exactly. So some of these things we do not learn in school. You must, to be a social worker, it must be a calling. You must have that people person, that passion towards people, in order to be able to reach those clients. And when they leave, they can say, Madam Sir, for a board job, even, and like I said, even if you didn't help them, but the fact that you're able to listen, the fact that you're able to touch them on their shoulder, the fact that you made the call for them, it, when they leave your office, then they feel that they have achieved a lot more than if they had stayed home.
Yeah.
So talking about that, when what tell me, have you had any experiences where a client have come to you and you have maybe have some bad experience with that client, or maybe that client left your office screaming and crying because because here we're talking about having empathy and maybe you just was not able to reach that client. Have you ever had that kind of experience?
1,000 times. Yeah.
Every social worker at some point in their career has had, even if it's just one,
Mhm.
has had a client where you just felt like it just didn't go well today at all, at all, at all. You just couldn't do, either you couldn't do it, or the situation was just so much at the time that it just wasn't possible for you.
Ex-
So I'd like to say that yes, we've all had one or few of those
yeah.
experiences.
But for me, what I've learned in these experiences is that, especially working with particularly working with young people, right? Young people, I would use it. Sometimes they tend to be somewhat stubborn. You understand? You understand? And but one of the things I learned is that is all about being patient and understanding how far you you could reach that individual as a social worker and even as an
Because
individual.
your role.
You
Yes.
understand? Because there's a particular threshold that you just cannot go beyond. You understand?
Yes, you do not want
Um,
to do more harm than good when that
yes,
client leaves.
yes.
Yes.
But what I've learned is just try your best to be patient and always encourage that individual in spite of, because sometimes we may take it for granted that that person may not they may not want the help, or they may be um, basically regressing, but we just have to have the hope that something would click. And
Or in
and
denial.
like you mentioned, Miss Charles, it's just about trying your best to touch them in a particular way. You understand? And I think that's where, even in that case, that's where self-care comes into play, especially for us as social workers. Because the thing is, you don't, when you see you home and then that kid's just on your mind. You understand? And then it's just a case where for me it's just about learning from my mistakes at the end of the day.
Sometimes too, yes, you may have had the experience with the client, or it didn't go well. Sometimes we just have to circle back and probably take a day or two and then reach out to the person.
Yeah.
Or you take some time, you think about what happened, what the person's situation is, what their issues are, and then you put something together in your mind, then you reach out to the person and say, well, I know when we spoke initially, X, Y, and Z happened, but this is what I can do, or where I can point you to, so that you can probably try to make the situation better. And that too sometimes makes a difference. So the bad experience would no longer be a bad one. It would now have turned around.
And even to add to that as well, I find what works as well, especially if you have a difficult client, you also reach out to your colleagues as well. Your colleagues, your colleagues may have had that experience, they may have overcome it, or even in a case where you just basically bouncing off ideas on that colleague, you're basically having a conversation or discussion, and you're able to find ways and means of,
Creative ways
yes,
to assist them.
to assist the client.
Because I was just about to ask you, what would you do, or what can you do to remedy challenges like that? And you have just answered well, part
Yeah,
well. I'll
yeah,
assume
yeah.
yes.
Having a good rapport with your colleagues, or even if it may not be your immediate colleagues, but it may be other social workers out
Yes.
there. You understand? You could reach out to them.
Yeah.
Probably someone even more senior, a social worker that's more senior, reach out to them. And that's an important skill as well. We didn't mention that, but that's a very important skill. Basically, having a support system within the profession as well.
And it's also good for the public to know that as social workers, we all study the same school of thought. So
Yep.
even if I'm working with social, at human services, you're working with welfare, you're
Yep.
working, we all study the same thing. You may not want to, we talk a lot about confidentiality, and we all guided by that rule of confidentiality. So
Mhm.
you have a case that is mind-boggling. Like you rightly said, you can discuss it. You may not have to say the person's name. You don't have to
Yes.
say where the person is from. But you bring a case, a case to them and say, look, I'm having this issue, and how do
Mhm.
I deal with it? And if you cannot deal with it, then maybe you might have to refer it to maybe your
Yeah.
supervisor or another
Yeah.
social worker in your department. Yes.
I just wanted to ask a question. I did hear, I think it was Mr. Joseph speak about self care, and we speak about the clients, but what about yourselves?
Mhm.
Where once I remembered having that experience, I was really traumatized by a case. So, in the event that you are traumatized by a case, what would you do?
Well, for us, again, remember we work as a team. So we have a team of individuals, and we're fortunate to be blessed with clinical counselors in the midst.
Mhm.
So, you said that you work with a multidisciplinary team. Could you tell
Yes,
us
which
what
is
is
part
it
of our.
comprised of?
Hmm? Sorry,
What is your team comprised of?
what does the team comprise of?
The You said you work with a multidisciplinary team. So
Hmm.
tell us what is it comprised of?
Oh
Who
well,
so
yeah,
that
we have the psychiatrists, we have the consultants for psychiatrists, we have the house officers, um, yeah, the junior doctors, right here. Then we have the nurses, we have the clinical counselors, and the social workers.
It would be the same for OKU too. We also have the multidisciplinary team up there as well. So we have the medical doctors, the consultants, then we have the junior officers, we have the nurses. So it's a team, the social workers, the counselors. So all of us work together to ensure that our patient irrespective, whether it be at OKU, Turning Point, the wellness center, we work together to ensure that the patients get the best care that they possibly can. Um, you were speaking about self-care, um, and like you said, you were saying, we have the counselors in our midst. So sometimes we would go and just sit in the offices and just rent, or we usually have debriefing sessions at least once a month. Sometimes we debrief among twice a month. Sometimes we debrief amongst ourselves as well. Um, and then sometimes you just have to take some time for yourself and just relax. Whatever relaxation looks like to you, it could be sleep, it could be meeting up with friends, going to the beach, going for a drive,
Exercising.
exercise, having your favorite meal. Sometimes these little things help to just de-stress, reset, and come back.
Yeah. So I heard we spoke. All of you spoke a lot about the clients. I wanted to bring out social workers. How do you take care of yourself? And I'm very happy
Mhm.
to hear you talk about debriefing and how important debriefing is and self care to you, and also that it doesn't mean that because you are senior social worker, that a case will not traumatize you, and if
Yeah.
you are as you're affected, that you will not go out to look for help. So thank you for that. Over to you, Miss Charles. Thanks.
Um, well, these are all the questions that I had for you all, but I needed to ask a question. Sometimes we see a client, like we were talking about self-care, and whatever the issue is, we feel that we can no longer see that client. We because maybe it could be anything. The a death. It could be maybe the behavior of the client. It could be the disrespect. It could be anything. Um, how do you relate? How do you react? What do you do in times like this?
Okay, so you're asking if a relationship has been terminated with a client.
Well, that could also be part of it, because we know sometimes when we tell the clients, okay, we have come to the end of our
Mhm.
treatment, and so you'll be going home, or and it could be all of that. It's just how do we relate to clients that don't take our help.
Okay. Clients that basically refuse assistance. Yeah. Well, um, uh, as a
Well, okay, so an important aspect of the social worker client relationship is that the client has the right to not accept the help. So sometimes they will tell you straight off the bat, I don't need your help, I don't need this, I don't want that. Or you start well, and then out of the blue they'll tell you, you know what, it's okay, I don't need anything, I don't want it anymore. And it can get you to the point that you see you were trying so hard, you were making so much progress, and then all of a sudden the client just says it's all right. So we just have to accept that that is what the client wants. You let them know that this is the end of our working relationship, but in the event that you would desire the assistance again, you could reach out to us, or you could access X, Y, and Z to get the assistance that you need. And so that's
so technically the relationship for us, the relationship doesn't end to a
Okay.
certain extent, because yes, the client has
The
we
right.
strongly, yeah, we strongly believe that the client has the right to self-determine. You understand? They have the right to make their own decision. They have the right to end the relationship, and we respect that. However difficult it might seem, of course, we're human beings, and we may look at the circumstance and feel a certain measure of compassion for that individual. You understand? But we understand that the client has that right. But it's still left open,
yeah.
because I've had clients who've terminated, and then maybe a year or two, or maybe after a few months, they would call back,
But they will just show up.
or they would show up, and
Yeah.
we'll just still try to assist.
Yes,
We'll
and
still
that's
work with
the role
them.
you have to.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It
Or
just had me thinking of my role as a social worker. Sometimes we have those young girls, they feel that
Mhm.
after they turn 16 that they're an adult,
Right.
and they feel that they can go and live with a boyfriend, they can have sex as much as they want. They feel that it's time for them to leave their parents' home, and you try to help them, and it's only they'll say, I don't want your help, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to talk to that lady. But when they get themselves in a jam, they come back.
Mm-hmm.
They come back humble, and then when they get back to where they want to be, they go back. So
Yeah,
they can come back to you as many times. You have
mhm.
to accept them as a social worker,
yeah,
and that's where non-judgmental comes in.
definitely.
Yes. So would you have any questions for me? Because I've come to the end of the questions I have for you. Any questions for us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just social work is um is a unique profession at the end of the day, and like you mentioned, it's a calling. You understand? However, also through experience, persons can develop the necessary skills.
Yes.
So they can develop the necessary compassion at the end of the day. For me personally, social work, when I was young, I never told myself, hey, I want to get old, I want to be a social worker. For me, in terms of my own experience, it was like I ended up in social work, and I just ended up loving it at the end of it. And it helped me realize the skills that I have, you understand, in terms of reaching out to others. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you told me I'll be a social worker, I'll never ask you what a social worker. I didn't even know what a social worker was.
Very true.
I didn't
Yeah.
even know what a social worker was. and it's a profession that I really enjoy. You understand? But like Miss Renita also mentioned, it's very important for us to take care of ourselves because we could experience a lot of what you call vicarious trauma. You understand? Because of all the cases that we that we that we encounter. You understand all of the cases that we encounter, and most times it kind of changes your perception. Sometimes about you risk having a negative perception. You understand? Because it's like you get to see the world for what it is.
Things you never thought you things you
Right.
did not think that happened.
That happened,
It
right?
happens.
It happens.
Anything you can possibly think of that you would say that only happens in the movie. That doesn't
Yes.
happen.
Yes.
Hey, it happens right there in solution.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
does.
So as social workers, self-care is very important at the end of the day. I know for some agencies, persons may not. I don't know for you, Miss Charles and Renita. I know sometimes you may have to take cases home. I just felt you'll have to do that. But I really wish we it. I mean, for us, we don't have to. We it's fortunate for us.
We try. I wouldn't say that. We
Yeah,
try not to take
Today,
notes.
yeah,
We
very.
try our best not to take notes because they might just have that one case that will just be. You may not physically take the file home with you, but it will be there.
Yes.
It will nag and nag and nag until
And
you.
there's this one client that will say, "You could call me on the weekend. If anything happens, you can call." There's always that one client.
yes,
No,
yes,
call me
yes,
anytime.
yes,
And yes,
yes.
yes,
And then and you know what you do? They call you 5 o'clock in the morning. I had that experience. But at the end of the day, you understand the circumstances, so you
yes,
take the
yes.
call. You understand even if it's a Sunday morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, you understand the circumstances. You
Mhm.
understand. You take the call and you try to
Yeah, because as a
assist.
social worker, like, we do not work overtime.
Yeah.
Um, but some people will say when it's 4:30, I'm going to turn off my phone. But
I
when the police calls you, when you get a call from the hospital,
Yeah.
because you have that passion, you're going to get up and run. I remember one morning a colleague and I, we were still in our 90s, and we got a call, and we run in our 90s,
Mhm.
so
It's a human services.
that's a human services thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, you have to like
That's a
it.
unique experience.
Yes.
That's a very
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
This is why I was saying that when you mentioned that what was it? You're the something lucky. I said yes, because correct me if I'm wrong, that um clinical social work, psychiatric and medical is within the confines of your
Yeah.
institute.
got
So you
yes.
Yeah.
go out there, but unfortunately for well, let me not use unfortunately, but
Yeah.
for us, you see, we get the referrals from you, we get the
Mhm.
referrals from other institutions, and
Yeah.
we have to be the ones who go out there and do everything. And like my colleague said, there's no forfeit for us. There's
Mhm.
no, this is the end of it. But sometimes, as you rightfully said earlier,
Self care.
that self care, you
Yeah.
need to
Self-care is important. Yeah.
to say, hey, you know what? I would love to help, but I just
Mhm.
can't. You have to take care of yourself at the end of the day. Yes.
5 more minutes. Huh?
There's something I wanted to add as well. Throughout my time as a social worker so far, I've noticed that yes, we say that solutions are a sense of loving people. We're community oriented and whatnot. But I just want to appeal to our heartstrings, especially when it comes to the older persons in society. That a lot of these people, we may think that they have family. A lot of them don't. A lot of them don't have children. They don't have access to finances because probably the time that they worked and whatnot, they didn't contribute to NIC. So you find a lot of our older persons right now, they cannot do for themselves. They don't have means to do for themselves, and we really need the family members, extended family members, and the communities that they live in, to come together to try to help them. Because me as a social worker, there's only so much I can do. I can only appeal to their heart, two persons to assist. But if these persons are not helped out within the community, sometimes it doesn't take much. They're in the community too, they have their own home. It shouldn't take much to just pop in, say hi, see if they need some clothes. They need their clothes to be washed. Most times they have their prescription just to pick up the medications for them, just to ensure that these persons, at least the end of their life, it's not a one where it ends in pain and misery. At least they can go to meet to their final resting place, okay, as opposed to be suffering. Because what we see at the hospital, it's not nice. And I don't think anybody would want to be in that situation when they're older, they've worked their entire life, they live their best life, and then before they go meet their maker, they in pain and suffering. I'm appealing to the public to check on the older persons in your communities. If you know that they don't have family, they don't have children, they don't have access to the things that they need, just check on them.
But
And like the older person does say, what they can bear you.
but even with that as well,
You know,
even with that as well, these persons in the community, they may not know where to start, right? So that is why we are here as social workers. You understand? So you may be a community and you probably don't know what resources to get for that individual. So that's why you approach a social worker. The social
Yeah.
worker has the knowledge to basically help provide you with the necessary information. Because I understand that. I understand the person, they may not know what. Generally, they may not know how to start or what at the end of the day. So that's why that's the whole point of social work.
Point
So the
there right there.
yeah, so social workers in the community will basically collaborate and work together to
yeah.
provide for these individuals.
But Miss Calixte, before we end, you spoke about elder care, and I think that should be a topic that we're going to talk about, for the next hour at one of our programs, because I think we need to really talk about our elderlies, especially those that have been left at the hospitals, those that are not
Mhm.
being cared for at home. So I think
People
that would be
doesn't think
something
it
that we
happens,
should
but it
discuss.
happens. Person,
Yes.
persons are being abandoned at the hospital. And we're
Okay.
fighting an uphill battle to get them to a
I'm,
place that they can be cared for.
I'm
And it
happy to
it,
hear you
it
say that,
happens
Alex.
it happens at the wellness center as well.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm happy to hear you say that. And what is sad about it, Miss Calix, is that, and Mr. Joseph, it's just, I heard you say that if they don't have family, that's something different. But the majority of them, what is heartbreaking is that they do have family,
Yeah.
they do
Mhm.
have children,
Yeah.
and they
Mhm.
feel that they could abandon them at the hospital, abandon them at the wellness center, and that's it. And sometimes when you look back and see where the children are, who they are, and it's really heartbreaking. So, as Ms. Charles said, I think our next topic will definitely have to be elder care. Before we end, um, I'm happy that you two are here. One of the challenges I've had is to get especially younger persons to the wellness center. And what I mean by that is that, okay, our procedure for say suicidal ideation, we have to get somebody up to the wellness center to get assessed and all, especially the younger ones. Things that you will hear from sometimes parents and so on. Me, I am not going there. I'm not crazy. I'm not mad. That's for crazy and mad people. What they'll do is just medicate me and so on. Can you shed some light as to what happens? What is the process when there is suicidal attempt, suicidal ideation, and all, especially as to younger persons?
Well, um, with suicide ideation, most times, um, especially if they're in school, they mostly referred to by the school counselor, right? So when they come in, it's just for an assessment. It's just so they could meet with the doctor, and the doctor would basically assess them and provide them with counseling and so forth. So I think, I mean, a lot of people believe that, I mean, mental illness is basically, we say it's on a continuum. There's extreme, and there's man
Mhm.
at the end of the day. Today or tomorrow, if I'm suffering with suicidal ideation or depression, I could come to the wellness center and ask to see a counselor. I'll be referred to a counselor. It's not a case where it's not a case where I'll be necessarily medicated. Of course, or admitted. Of course, if it's suicide ideation with severe depression based on the doctor's assessment, that client will be placed on medication at the end of the day. Of course, again, clients may be placed on mild medication. Again, based on the diagnosis, the consultant would do that review. You understand? But I don't think it's a case where person should be afraid to reach out to the wellness center. You understand? You have stress. These people have stress, anxiety. You could even contact the helpline 203. You understand? And you will also be referred to a counselor. Yeah.
Like you rightfully said, you work with a multidisciplinary team, and when you go there, you will be seen by that multidisciplinary team. So
Mhm.
where you'll be getting counseling
Yes,
as well
definitely.
as being assessed medically. So this is why I wanted to bring that out because there's this stigma attached to wellness. So every time, anytime somebody hears wellness, me, yeah, I'm not telling my child I'm not
Mhm,
going there.
mhm.
So, and I've had persons when they come back, they tell me, Miss, you were right. It's not bad, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've had some success stories. So, yeah. So I just wanted to put this out there. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so before we end, like Miss Bojemet said when we first started, that this month we're also celebrating Women's Day.
Yes.
And we just wanted to touch a little bit on Women's Day. The theme for Women's Day is accelerate action, and what they're saying is they emphasizes the urgency of making faster, more effective strides toward gender equality. Now, I don't know if we have gender equality here, because if we really look now, we see a lot of our women in managerial positions. They're ministers, they're PSCs, and so I don't see we have that issue. They paid about the same. I
The
don't know for
issue,
the hotels, but
the
I
issue is the men. The issue is you have less men in these positions.
I heard Mr. Sean Edwards saying, I'm begging, calling on to the young guys to come and get scholarships, because
Yeah,
every
yeah.
time you look, you see a whole line of young ladies coming to get scholarships, and our men are not coming forward. I think they prefer to sit on the block. So we need to encourage our young men out there. So I don't think we
Definitely.
have much of that. But one thing I want to say is that our women in positions, I think they need to, one of the issues we have, women when they're in positions, they forget about the other women, because it's all about me right now. I'm the head. So they fight on each other. They don't want to, instead of helping each other grow, we I think that's something that we need to really look at, to help us women grow. We're growing, but then with the women working together, we can grow more.
Yes, but I'll be the devil's advocate on that, Miss Charles.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes, for instance, I work with you. We're at the same stage, right, Miss Calix? I work with you. We're
Yeah.
at the same stage, and boom, something happens. Okay, I become your supervisor, and you will give me such a difficult time because you'll think, oh, who do you think you are? You worked with me. We were at the same level, and now, so I do understand what you're saying, but sometimes it is difficult for others. And also, when I'll say we, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes later on in life we will become at a different level. I'm saying that sometimes it's good that, as you said, we take a step back. We take a step back, breathe, assess, and then look at ways to manage. Because sometimes the pressure is so much that instead of managing properly, you tend to lash out.
Mhm.
So breathe, manage.
I just want to say something before we end. um, Read something here. And while it speaks about feminism, I also see social work in it. It said, feminism is for everybody. I raise up my voice, not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. I am not free while any woman is unfree or any citizen is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. So I just want to leave
Very
that
deep.
with my viewers and with you, my fellow colleagues, social workers.
Thank you. But before we end, I would like to say something quickly about women. And one of the women I did do literature, and I really enjoyed Harriet's daughter. And then the yes, our lady of history, Harriet Tubman. Um, she is really an inspiration. She's actually a slave who escaped slavery and did some great transformation. So you were speaking about women bringing up other women and pulling others. She also did that. In our society, who inspires me the most in women are our single mothers. Okay? Our single mothers, sometimes I sit back and I say, wow, we are really superheroes. There is this particular person. I hope she's listening. I want to shout out to her. And I really admire her. She's really an inspiration. From where she came from to where she is now. I did ask her permission to call her out this morning. Um, just to get the proper title. Yes, she actually came from my community, and you'll know the story of. I hope nobody takes offense, but I did ask permission. The story of the ugly duckling becoming a swan. I really, when I hear these stories, it really reminds me of certain people, and she's one of those. Well, this young lady came from very humble beginnings, and this did not stop her from going out there and making someone of herself. So now she is an inspector of police who went on to get a law degree. So now she's an attorney at law. So I think Miss Innocent, Anel Innocent, you're an inspiration and continue the great work. And I would love that you write your biography so somebody would read it and be inspired. Okay? And what really inspires me more is the fact that she brings her mother everywhere with her. Because sometimes when we come from such humble beginnings and our mothers are not up there with us, we forget them, we get ashamed and don't want people to know where we came from and don't want people to know our parents. She's not one of those. She brings her mother everywhere, puts her mother up, does not forget where she came from. So kudos to you, Miss Innocent, and continue the great work. All right. So I'm not sure if you want to shout out any woman. So this would be my woman of the month, Miss Aniel Innocent. Okay? Yes.
Any last thoughts before we end? No. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being here with us today. Thanks for helping us celebrate Social Work Month. And hopefully next week you'll tune in to hear what our next topic is going to be. Listeners, thank you for listening.
And
All
thank
right.
you.
For having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.